says it's streaming live now, but it takes a minute to pop up on YouTube. And I'm going to pause it.
Oh, I just saw it pop on my phone. But if I click on it, I won't be able to see.
There we go. Yeah. Okay, so it is live now. I don't hear an echo, so that's good. Okay. Oh, and Ashley's already there. Hi, Ashley. So we already have one viewer, and Shara. There's Shara. We got our regulars coming. Hi. Okay, as you guys can see, I'm wearing my coat. I might take it off in a little bit, but it's really, really cold here in the office at the church. So anyways, we have a guest tonight. We have Mrs. Hi, Josh. Hi, Heather. We have Mrs. Kelly Logan. Say hi.
Hey, guys.
And we've been Facebook friends for a while, so I've never met you in real life, but you had contacted me like the end of last year just with an idea for the show. And anytime you guys are open to giving me ideas for the show, I'm always looking for guests. I'm always looking for ideas. So I wanted you just to I haven't even heard it. Okay. So this is all new to me, but I want you to just kind of share a little bit of your testimony and why this was on your heart. The subject was on your heart. So
I grew up in like an Episcopal home where they pretty much teach you to get to heaven, you get sprinkled, or I think they actually poured water, not sprinkled. And I just always believed that, if you're not baptized, you're going to go to hell. And that was all I thought. I didn't even think you had to be a good person or anything. I just thought baptism was it, and that's not even real baptism, but I didn't know. So I went my whole life, probably until I was about 20 years old. And I met my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, in my chemistry class at Virginia Tech, of all places. And so I'd met him, and I thought he was a little odd. He had a book. I thought he's studying for a class. And I said, "What are you reading?" And he said, "Oh, it's a life-changing book." And I thought, what a weirdo. So he invited me they had like a campus ministry. I'm sure a lot of colleges do, have people go out and, try to win the college students to Christ, because college is a really, really bad environment for anyone who wants to follow the Bible. I'll just leave it at that. So I was there, and I went with him to the church, and the first service, I just remember hearing, they did the invitation, you've got to be born again. You've got to trust Christ as your savior. There's no other way to heaven. And I just remember thinking, no, I've never done that. And so, the first service, I, asked the Lord to save me. I wanted to be saved right then and there. I was like, this is it, sure. Sign me up. I want to be saved. So,
awesome.
And that was, I want to say like 2004, no, 2005. Yeah, 2004. So anyways, my husband, he finished his degree there at Virginia Tech. He went into the military, and I still had a few more years of school left. So I was actually going to join the military as well. And I was in the Corps Cadet program at Virginia Tech. And we just didn't want to do the long distance relationship. So he ended up buying me a plane ticket, and we got married in a courthouse in San Antonio, Texas.
Hey, whatever works.
And we just kind of wandered like with churches. We went to like a base chaplain type thing, where you could have a female pastor, but we just really didn't know much. He had just gotten saved the year before I did. So we were just hungry to learn more about the Bible and, what the truth really was, more than salvation. And so we went to like a non-denominational church next in Las Vegas. That's where he got stationed. And we had some friends like present us like, the Bible, of course we're given NIVs and stuff like that, just because that's what everyone would read. So they're like, hey, you should really look into the difference in the Bible version. So we looked into it, and we're like, you know what, this is not right. So we were like instant, King James only converts. We were like, there's just no way. I saw Acts 8:37 is gone, regarding baptism and, what are the requirements for baptism. And that, was enough for me, because I grew up my whole life thinking I'm going to heaven because of baptism. So,
right.
Just having that one verse gone was enough for me to, change over to the King James Bible. So we decided we need to leave our church, because they did use King James sometimes, but not every time.
Right.
And we're like, we just didn't want to deal with the confusion. Bringing a King James, trying to follow along with the different ones. And so this was kind of before like the internet was super big, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And, typed in like King James Version Church.
Right.
And of course, the only thing that comes up are independent, fundamental King James, Baptist churches.
Right.
So I'm like, well, that's where we're going to go, because I don't want to go anymore to the churches that aren't using, God's word.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this was like 2006. So it was right after we had our first baby, and we just stuck with the Fundamental Baptist Church. I'm like, this is, the right doctrine, and we never looked back. We just, now we look at, the fun-centered churches and just think, what a waste of time. And, there are people in there that are saved people, and some of them do have a zeal for God, but it's just not according to knowledge. And
right.
So even if I meet people who are like non-denom, I, see if they're really saved, and I try to, bring them along. A lot of times they fight though. They're like, no, I'm going to stick with my, NIV. And I just don't get it, because we like right away, we're like, no way. I don't want to, read lies anymore. So then and we've moved around a lot. I want to say we've moved 15 times in our marriage.
Wow.
We've been married 15 years, and I think we've moved that many times.
Wow.
We lived in like Las Vegas, North Las Vegas. When he would deploy, I would go stay with family. One time in Norfolk, Virginia, Hampton, Virginia, DC area, Alexandria, Virginia. Then we were stationed in Missouri, bought a house 2 hours away in Missouri. So we've been to a lot of fundamental Baptist churches, and we've seen and done a lot. And we never, I would say, like totally fit in, because we had like the radical beliefs. We were like against birth control. We were against the military, even though my husband was in the military. We didn't support the unconstitutional wars, and just the military environment, and in general, it's a bad environment for Christians to be in. Mm-hmm. And so my husband voluntarily separated. Even though we were making great money, he decided just to, he couldn't for his conscience sake, stay in, get an anthrax shot, and every year go on deployments, and even though he's not directly shooting anybody, when he would deploy to Iraq and Afghanistan, still just being supportive of it, shipping different things and just supporting, the senseless, unconstitutional wars. He decided to get out. So,
well, not to even mention with that, just the separation from you guys, because how many children do you guys have?
We have 8.
Yes. And what are their ages? How old's the oldest down to the youngest?
13 to 1.
Yeah. So you're raising a big passel of children.
Yeah.
So, and I have family that are in the military, and there have been many, even though maybe 10 years of marriage, there's been many, like a couple of 1-year deployments where he was separated, from the family the entire time. So I know that's really tough on the family unit. So, good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, for military, I don't recommend anybody join the United States military. My husband's deployed to Qatar, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He's missed 2 of our births.
Yeah.
They pay you, and they give you tax-free money and free healthcare, but it's just not worth it, to, have a bad conscience, towards the Lord, and thinking, hey, I'm supporting, killing innocent people, and
right,
basically just stealing taxpayer money to do evil.
Right. Yeah. So let's get into the topic at hand. I wanted to talk about now, how long were you at your last IFB church that you were in?
We were there, I want to say, for like 2 to 3 years. We did move in between, and we went to one of their church plants.
Okay.
We were in, so like, I want to say off and on, because we helped with the church plant that they started in the other town, but off and on for like 3 years total, that we went to that church. And I mean, it's a good church. I recommend anyone go there. I still have friends that go there, and it's not a bad church, but
good.
For our family, we just wanted to be somewhere that was more on the same page, that we weren't going to feel like people are going to roll their eyes at us for wanting to keep our kids out of nursery, and not wanting to celebrate the military.
Right.
different things like that, we would be kind of like the oddball. And, but I mean, we could have stayed there if we wanted, but it just thought, why not go somewhere that would be a more like-minded environment for our family.
Right. And we're going to touch on that in a little bit. But, one of the first points that we came up with was, the first way to be a blessing in your church is just showing up. And before you kind of talk about this, I just wanted to throw in there, my husband and I both get so annoyed at the NIFB punks that are keyboard warriors. They sit around spouting, and pontificating about all these things that you should do in a church. Or this church is not good enough for me. They're not post-trib, they're, blah, blah, blah. They support Israel, and we've gone over many times the fundamentals of being in a good church, the deal breakers, things like that. But, honestly, the first step to being a blessing in your church is getting in a church. And, what are some ways that, just go over some of the points that we came up with for why you just need to show up.
So, I mean, first of all, you want to show up because God commands it. Hebrews 10:25, a very famous passage, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. And, God commands it. So you just need to go. You need to find somewhere and just go because God wants us to go there. And, how easy is that? That's one of the easiest things to do. It's just to go, get in your car or, ask for a ride if you don't have a car, but just to get in church, and we do like to go 3 times a week. We have, since we became a fundamental Baptist church, we've always wanted to go to all 3 services. And there is a lot of drop off, like some churches will have like a big Sunday crowd and then Sunday night and Wednesday night, like, where did everybody go?
Right. Yeah. Every IFB church is like that. The church I came from, Lighthouse, they actually were really good about being consistent for Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. But people that would visit would talk about how rare that was because most IFB churches, most churches across the board, IFB, whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, like our church, we do have some people that travel a good distance. So, I'm not saying it's wrong. But, if you're able, you should go.
Right, exactly. Get off the couch, stop eating chips off your chest and watching internet church and go to church. So
and I'm assuming most of the people watching this channel are mothers and they have children. And I know a lot of IFB churches we visited, it's a really old crowd. And it's really sad. It is. It really is sad to see, almost everyone in the whole church is gray hair. Nothing wrong with gray heads, but when the whole church is gray, it's kind of sad. So,
yeah. And churches are closing because their membership is literally dying out. We knew of a church here in town. They had to shut the doors because their members literally died because of old age. Wow. It wasn't even like horrendous accidents. It was because of old age. Their entire membership roster died out because they weren't reaching, they weren't reaching the younger ones. And I believe there is a real truth movement. I don't know if you want to call it that, but among the young people of today, there are a lot seeking for the truth. And so I know a lot of people that are finding, IFB churches and getting saved. They have been looking for a while and they are younger, and they need to grow. And the best place to grow is in church. So,
right. Right now our church is pretty young. I think we have 2 people with gray hair.
Yeah. We actually have quite a few older people in our church, which is good. I love the older people. Since the time I was younger, I've always loved old people. They have a lot of wisdom. But you definitely need to, reach the younger generation for sure. Right. So
now was your church already there with some members when you came?
No, we started our church from scratch, just our family. And we actually had an older gentleman that was there from day one. We had 2 older ladies in their 80s that my husband knocked on their door, and they're sisters. And they ended up getting saved and getting baptized in their 80s. And they have been consistent for 8 years. Now one of them 90 in her 90s. So that was really exciting seeing 2 80-year-old sisters get baptized. That was really, really fun.
Okay, so, yeah. I wasn't sure because you guys have a church building, and I know that's really hard to get established as a church plant. So I didn't know if it was
I hear some
somehow
kids.
hand it to you. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I mean, speaking of kids that I hear, children, they bring smiles to faces, and all the older people in our church they love the children running around. And I don't know if you've ever been to nursing homes or done a nursing home ministry, but
Yeah.
people love children. So get your children in church. That's one of the biggest, most important things you can do for your children.
Yeah.
And,
really,
what is a way to just be, when you're there, just being friendly and smiling?
yeah. For me, I get pretty distracted, but just because I have 8 kids and my husband actually
Yes.
on Sunday.
I'm the same. I know how it is. It's hard,
So
especially
I see someone come and I'm like, oh, let me go talk to them. But then I've probably started so many conversations that end like, where's Mary? And I'm like,
yeah. Yep.
And so, but I really try to go out, and our church is really, really good about greeting first-time visitors. So sometimes I can't even get to them because someone else is already talking to them. But that's not always the case. We've been in churches where, I might be the only one that comes and says hello to them, but I always really want to make a point, my name's Kelly and I'm so glad you're here. And, and that's it.
Right. That's a huge welcome though. Yeah, that's a huge welcome. Well, what about what's a way that you can be a blessing to your church when it comes to just watching your kids while you're at church? Like you were talking about, where's Mary? Because I'm the same way. Who is Kelly? Who is Kelly?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, as we go over this, don't think that I do all these things because I don't. Especially
we're all a work in progress.
With 8 children, and then my husband works on Sunday, so like right after Sunday morning he's gone out the door and I'm like, I got everyone.
Yeah.
And I got to wrangle everyone. So Wednesday night's the only service where I feel like I can really talk to people without wondering where my kids went.
Yeah.
But just keeping track of them, because it happened to me before where I'm talking to someone and you hear crying. Baby.
Yep. You hear a big crash, crying.
Worst parent ever. You're just chatting it up about really nothing that important.
Yeah.
And when someone's bringing you your baby, screaming. So watching your kids and just, I always try to just do a head count, find out where everyone is, and just walk around and say, okay, she's there. And so I, a lot of times, will stand by the door, the exit. We have only one exit at our church, which is much easier. I've been to churches where it's just doors everywhere.
Right.
And those are more nerve-wracking. But where we are right now, they are just renting a storefront. So there's just one door. So I usually try to stand in the lobby if I'm talking, or like have a view of the front door, because that's the most dangerous, part. And then just helping with other moms too, because other moms sometimes get lost in conversations.
Yeah.
And, you might see their little toddler go through the door and, just go grab them and, watch out for other people's kids. People do it for me. And, even though I'm busy and have 8 of my own, I have no problem, picking up someone's baby or toddler and, putting them back into the church or taking them to their parent. Don't just have the attitude where it's like, not my kid, they should be watching them, because it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
It really does. And for you moms that just have 1 or 2 kids, it's easier for you to know at all times, well, I've got my baby in my stroller, and one on my back. Those are the easy days. For moms that's got, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, it's almost impossible to keep dibs on them at all times. But I really, really do try and just look out for each other, at the church. And I've been to some churches, actually our pastor's wife at our last church, there was actually someone got killed, not at that church, but the church she grew up in. She told me a child got killed in the parking lot, just getting run over. And so parking lots make me nervous. Yeah. So just, be mindful when you're even pulling out of the church, because like I have a big van, and you have a big van too, I'm sure.
Yes, I do.
I'll even ask my kids, anyone behind me, because I just want to be extra careful. And I probably drive 4 miles an hour out of the parking lot just to be on the safe side, because that's how I would want people, to treat me and my family if they see some of my kids playing by our car. and I'm still in the building. I don't want people moving out of the parking lot. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing too that I have seen, actually, my friends that are pastors' wives and things, if we get into discussion about, there's some families in church, and this is not pertaining, most of the bad stuff that I'm going to be talking about, it does not pertain to my church people. I just want to throw that out there because I feel like my church ladies are so good about all of this, and I don't have any problems when it comes to this stuff, but maybe eventually I will. I don't know, but now I don't. But there have been problems before with kids just tearing apart everything in the church. Tearing apart rooms, tearing songbooks, writing in songbooks, just destroying the entire place, and the parents do nothing about it. And it's all up to the pastor and his family to clean up after it. So just, watch your kids, and if they destroy something, have them clean it up. If they break something, have them sweep it up if it's we've had so many broken light bulbs here, and just, where there are no ox in the crib is clean. So obviously there's a lot of kids running around, things are going to happen, but I'm not talking about the accidental things once in a while. I'm talking about just destructiveness, just unfettered destructiveness. So that is one way.
I know what you're talking about. We've been to some churches, and I would say this happens a lot in churches that have so many programs that the parents are like still tied up in this program,
right?
But the kids might have gotten released from their program, and the kids are just kind of in limbo.
Yeah.
And just run amok.
Yeah.
Destroy things. And you're just like, you feel like you're serving the Lord because you're, cleaning up the nursery. But then, your 5 and 6-year-old got released from Sunday school and you don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, it really creates a chaotic environment. And the Bible says the child left himself, bringing his mother to shame. So, it's no wonder kids tear things up. And I'm, that's one of the reasons we wanted to do a family integrated church, is because, when we were in churches, of course, we were a young couple. So we always get volunteered. You want to do junior church, Sunday school, bus ministry?
Yeah.
Logan family is it. And we've done it all.
Yeah.
And, it gets exhausting. And, but one of the things I dislike the most about, serving in a different class or, working in the nursery is my older kids. Once I didn't have babies and I had babies and older kids, and say my husband was working one service and he wasn't there, I'm like, where are my kids? Because they're not going to let you have your older kids in the nursery. They have an age limit. So you're just hoping the Sunday school teacher stayed with them. But, been there, done that. And I'm sure my kids have destroyed their fair share of I don't even know about, because I was
probably,
serving the Lord some other way, not watching my own kids. So yeah, I totally see that. But we also really don't have that problem at our church either. So.
Ashley asked a question. She said, and I'm going to answer it, and then you can give your thoughts. As a pastor's wife, I'm going to answer it as, a lay person. You can answer it. But if kids are sitting with friends and are misbehaving through the service, is it okay to shush them? That's hard to say. Or say something to the parents? We have many kids who sit with friends and are distracting. For me, I do get after kids in the service that are talking. And my girls have a lot of little friends, and most of the time they'll sit either directly in front of me, and I will get on who is ever talking. I'll just say, I'll tell them to be quiet. That's just what I do. I don't know. Do you get on other people's kids? You just pretty much yours.
I don't. I guess
so you're the opposite of me.
Like bad experiences, like I've babysat kids before and stuff, and like it never really goes well. If you tell someone else's kid, like, don't do that, because then, the parent might come back to you and like, you don't be telling my kids to do this. And I'm like,
you're so great too. So I just must have really good church ladies, because they don't think you guys care when I tell your kid to be quiet. But I tell them though, I always tell them, if my kid sits with you, tell them to be quiet. Okay. And my daughter, Miss Carrie, if you're watching this, my daughter sits with your daughter a lot, and you have permission to tell her to be quiet. So all my church ladies know.
I'm not offended at all, because I know my kids are bad. They can be bad. Not that I have bad kids, but I know they can be bad. I know what they're capable of. So if someone came and told me my kid did something, I wouldn't even think twice. I would know,
Right.
okay, yeah, my kids would do that. I'm sorry.
I learned,
yeah.
I learned from very early age never to say my kid would never do that, because that's when your kid's going to do it. Just to prove you wrong. I learned that lesson very quickly on because it happened to me. So
yeah,
I learned that.
it does, you know, and that's pretty much anywhere you go, people, there's always someone that's going to accuse you of something. So
Yeah.
I really don't like drama and confrontation. So I usually, you know, unless the kids are doing something like dangerous, you know,
Right.
or something really bad, like just holding the water fountain button down and just letting water out for like 5 minutes straight. I've seen that happen.
Oh,
but
nice.
if they're just chatting with each other in the church, like, I don't know. I'm like, I hope some other woman would like give them a stare down or their parents come in.
If I was there, I'd do it for you.
I would kids are like chatterboxes sometimes, and yeah.
I do.
But yeah, you know, you probably are coming in from a different perspective. You know, it's your husband that's preaching. You know, you really want to keep it, you know, less distracting for him. So.
Right. Exactly. I don't know, and I'm not afraid of confrontation, so that's probably it happens. But another area that you can help with just being a blessing to your church is just participating in the soul winning. You know, don't complain about a church not having a soul winning program that you're not even going to. You're just sitting at home eating chips off your chest. And then when you finally start going to a church with a soul winning program, you know, go. So what are some ways that you go? What helps you when you go soul winning?
I mean, yeah, it was pretty easy to go soul winning. We've been in a soul winning church, I want to say, since 2006. And I mean, in the early days, it was just so easy because it was me, my husband, you know, one baby, two babies, three babies, four babies, you know. And if I had my husband, we'll even go with all 8 of our kids if my husband's there, and we'll just split them up. Like my husband maybe will take a couple. I'll take the backpack and double stroller and one of the older kids, and we'll split up that way. But you know, most people don't have 8 kids. That they're, I mean, I come to the conclusion it's just too overwhelming to go up to a door with all 8 of my children.
That's a little much. I'll take like 2 or 3 at the most. But yeah, if you come up with a big mob of people, someone's gonna be like, what is going on?
Exactly. And it's very distracting. So I really don't go solely as much as I would like to. But like they sometimes do apartment complexes that have playgrounds. And our pastor's wife, Mrs. Burson, she's like, you know, you should come this Sunday because, you know, even without your husband, because I'll be at the playground and we can, you know, talk to the kids at the playground. And so I went with her, you know, last Sunday, and I got there, and, you know, she's preaching the gospel to, you know, a group of kids, and her kids are just playing at the playground. And then, you know, I was able to talk to 2 Ethiopian women and their daughter about the gospel, and, you know, still have kind of an eye on my kids. And my sister was there too, so that was helpful. But you know, soul winning with kids, you know, I always would do a baby carrier because I'm like, we got a double stroller, baby carrier, you know, that accounts for 3.
Right.
And then you've just got like 4, 5, 6. And so we try to you know, do what you have to do. A lot of times when soul winning with kids, I know my friend Angelica that goes to our church, Angelica Freeman, she posted on Facebook, I think you saw it.
Yes.
Where she's doing like holding up a YouTube like ABC video for her daughter Jubilee, and then Jenny's son. I'm not sure Jenny's son's name, but she's like, you know, I didn't think I would ever do this, but you know, it was necessary, you know, just to keep them quiet. So, you know, a lot of times we'll step back from the door and the talker will just finish the whole thing, you know, without you standing next to them.
Exactly.
I kind of step back, and I've done that many times with my husband. We'll all come to the door, they'll talk, and, you know, if someone's really interested, I'll just step back all the way and let him finish up. Or sometimes one of my older sons, you know, we'll stand at the door with him. But yeah, it is difficult to go out soul winning with the whole crew. But you know, do what you can, and, you know, look for opportunities like the playgrounds, and, you know, maybe just kids in your neighborhood. You're not maybe gonna go, I don't know if anyone on here has, you know, 6 or more kids. That would scare people. And also my husband works like 70 hours a week, 6 days a week, a really demanding job. So you know, I have most of the kids, all 8 of the kids, like 90% of the time.
Mhm. Mhm. And you're still smiling, so that's a good testimony.
I do. I'm always smiling. A lot of people say that to me. They're like, "Yeah, how many kids do you have? And you're still smiling?" And they're like, "Do you want any more?" And I'm like, "Sure." They're like, "Well, how many more?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So, I see people are asking me now, "Are you pregnant? Are you pregnant?" Because our baby's like 16 months, and I'm not pregnant. Sorry.
That
We
answers all
have had a baby like every year and a half to 2 years, and so if you're one of us like fertile myrtles, people start, counting your, fertility cycles, and they're like, "Oh, it's about time. It's about time. Do you have any news?"
That's funny. That's kind of annoying to me. I've gotten that too as I've gotten older. I don't even have them as close as you. So, but let's get into the next point. I wanted to really touch on this because I think this is a big one. This is a big one for people that just, they're not going into a church to be a blessing. They're going into a church to be a pot stirrer. They go in there to try to stir the pot. Talking about doctrinal differences with other members. And you hear rumors all the time about how these Andersonites, it's a stupid term, but they've termed us this, how the Andersonites will go into different churches and cause problems and cause church splits. And the actual families that I have known that have been in IFB churches that are rooted in the church and being a blessing, I have never heard of them causing problems. In fact, if they end up moving, their pastor is really sad about it. They said they were a blessing the whole time they were there. So, what are some different things people do though, that are going in with the wrong intentions? They're not going in to be a blessing. They're going in to cause problems. And there are some like that. So I'm saying don't be this way. But what are some things that they do?
I mean, I've seen people, throw fits about just stupid things like women wearing pants. And they'll just leave the church.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes no sense at all. Like, I mean, that's just such a silly, issue to, leave the church over. I mean, just the things I've seen people leave the church before. It's just like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
They weren't looking to be a blessing at all. They're looking for an excuse to leave. And
right.
I know a lot of people like that.
With that, they're always looking to take people with them. So, and you always hear about it, like, there's so much drama, and I mean, even when we left our, the last church we were at, we weren't like, oh, this church isn't post-trib and, you guys are Zion. Like, we never said that. We, when people did ask, what we said was like, we want our family to be in a church that's a little more, like-minded, a little more like on the same path, like something like that,
right. Mm-hmm.
Something non-offensive, and when we left, the pastor's wife and daughter gave me a hug. I'm still friends with them on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're bad people, but some people when they want to leave a church, it's just like, the Facebook posts, and even when I was at the church, I actually stopped posting even on my personal Facebook. I know people might not agree with that. I would not post a Pastor Anderson or Pastor McMurtry sermon on the Poster Rapture while we were at our old IFB church.
I agree with that. I mean, I
didn't want to cause drama.
Right. I agree with that. And I think, you can be honest when people question you about your beliefs, especially if they come to you, if you're not, just handing out DVDs and saying, hey, if you listen to this, or, forwarding all these links, you can be honest, but you can also be tactful. It is out of respect for your pastor that you weren't constantly, posting sermons, directed at him, like tagging him, hey, look at this at pastor, whoever, that's just being a punk. And I have known of people that have done that. So just don't do that. Learn to be tactful.
That would be horrible. So, and I mean, and honestly, I mean, I want to say I had never even heard of Pastor Anderson until 2014. So, I never heard of like the Andersonites, but I will say from like 2014 up until 2019, when we finally moved to Atlanta, it was like a household name in like every church. You know, there was one church where they said he was the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his name really became a household name. I want to say maybe that 2015 to 2017 timeframe. It might have been when they sent out the DVDs to every single fundamental Baptist church in America when they'd had that.
Oh, that's true.
I think that before I've never heard of Pastor Anderson. So, you know, I never really considered the post-trib, or like I said, our issues were like military, birth control, you know, working mothers.
Right.
We were more like fundamental on those issues that I know some people in our church believed, but the pastor would never quite, you know, preach on it all the way.
Right. It's taboo. It's
so
taboo.
I thought, you know, when I first heard Pastor Anderson's sermon, so do you want to hear a funny story of how I found Pastor Anderson's sermon? We had just moved from Missouri back to Virginia, and they had asked me to help out with their nursery and getting it organized, the new church we were at. And we had just moved there, the nursery it hadn't really been kept up and stuff. So like, hey, could you come and help and organize and stuff? I said, sure. And so I, you know, cleaned the toys, bought new bins, tried to get things in order. And I'm like, hey, you know, every other church I've been at has a nursery like check sheet, like wipe down, you know, the mats and take out the diaper genie, you know, just kind of a check sheet for the nursery workers. I'm sure you've seen them. And I thought, oh, we need one of those. So I just went on and like Googled like church cleaning nursery check sheet. And the thing that came up was Mrs. Anderson's blog, Why I Hate Church Nurseries.
Oh, that's funny. You're like, what is this craziness?
Like, total clickbait title, right?
Yes. What is this?
I didn't even know what clickbait is like back then. So this is like 2014. And I'm like, let me read this article just because it was a clickbait title, you know? And so I read it, and it's like, you know, nurseries can, you know, spread sickness faster and, you know, leave room for pedophiles. And I'm like, you know, this makes a lot of sense. And she also put in the scriptures about, you know, the whole congregation meeting. And then at the end of her blog post, she had Pastor Anderson's sermon, Suffer the Children. And I listened to it, you know, not really with an open mind at first. And I just thought, you know, I was kind of listening to it I didn't even know if they were Baptist. I didn't really know much. I just clicked on the blog post and I thought, this sermon makes so much sense. And so much scripture used. And, you know, once you click on that first sermon, there's like a million other ones.
Yeah, there is. A whole new world opens.
Yes, this was like 2014. I'm like, how come I never heard this preaching? And just because we already had those beliefs against the military and birth control and, you know, working moms, but no one ever would preach it. And I saw that he preached it, and I thought, you know, this is a great pastor, a great man of God. You know, I would like to be in a church like this. But, you know, we were in Virginia. That was in Arizona. There was no way we were going to move all the way that far. And so, but yeah, and so after that, when I first heard it, I did send some sermon links to like some friends. Pretty much my whole Facebook page is like I don't know, like 10 different IFB churches we've been to with all the moving around we've done. And so, you know, at each church, you kind of get like your best friend, you know, at each of the churches you're at. And so I did send like, I think the After the Tribulation link to a couple of my friends, and the response I got was so negative. You know, it was just like, oh, have you heard of this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm just thinking everyone's going to be like, wow, this is so eye-opening.
It's eye-opening, but it's not when you've been taught that your whole life, it takes a long time to process it. And you want to do your own study. That's where we were. You know, we watched it and we were like, some of the stuff he's saying makes a little sense, but nope, can't be true. You know, can't be true. It's questioning everything we've been taught our whole lives, even though we always felt something was off, but nope, can't be true. And then, you know,
I was the same way. I want to say it took me about 2 weeks to change my mind from the time I watched it to the time I was like, you know, I can't, because, you know, like you said, you've been taught it. And so, you know, it's like, oh, he's saying, oh, this is going to happen. But I'm like, well, I know this isn't going to happen because he who now let us will let until he be taken out of the way. And that's the Holy Spirit. So that's just not. And then he goes through all those verses like in the film and just debunks them all, and you're left with nothing.
Yep. You kind of, once you see things, you can't unsee them. So,
but I mean, even with that, it's not a reason to leave a church. It's not a reason to, cause fight, because you've changed your stance on end times prophecy. I mean, and to see people upset and not going to church because your pastor, doesn't believe that we're going to be here for the tribulation is just beyond stupid. It's not hurting anyone but yourself and your family, not being in church. So now you're breaking God's command, forsaking the assembling of yourself, and you're not having the fellowship. Your family's not. And what are you going to be doing on Sunday now anyway? Like I don't.
Yeah. So. I mean, my best friend is pre-trib, so whatever. Not a big deal to me. It is what it is. But
I have family and friends. They're all pre-trib except for like the Facebook friends I have and the people at our church now. Right. And I really don't care. I'm like, it's not something to fight about. It's really not. I mean,
and that's what you got to realize too. You got to realize that your pastor is, your pastor is not perfect, and he is going to misspeak. He's going to have some things wrong, but if you have a concern with him, you need to talk to him about that in private. Don't be going around to the other members, backbiting him, talking to them about it, and treat him like a father, like the verse says in 1 Timothy.
I mean, and we never went around and started like, hey, do you listen to Pastor? Like, never. Like, the only reason I knew we had other Pastor Anderson listeners in our church is because like one day I was hanging out in the nursery, feeding my baby, and like another mom walks in and she's like, oh, I'm so tired. I was up all night watching a documentary with my husband. And I said, oh, what are you watching? After Tribulation. I'm like, oh, like instant connection. But, it kind of happened like that. It wasn't like we went around trying to find out, who we could convince, that the rapture really was after the tribulation. So I just think that's silly when, you hear people going around and, they get to a church and just start passing out the after the tribulation DVDs. Like, I mean, I think that's very disrespectful to your pastor, if you don't, have his permission to, hand out doctrinal differences. I find that disrespectful to the pastor, and no wonder you're asked to leave the church. And it just gives everyone a bad name. So, and I mean, I've sat through some pretty bad sermons. And I just, smile. And I would say there's a few times I got pretty heated in a sermon. And one was one of our pastors, I won't say who, because I mean, we've been to so many, I don't want to.
No,
I'm not going to name any names, but because I still think they're a good pastor. But, I've heard one sermon, the pastor was just, basically bashing the reprobate doctrine and saying, we'll let sodomites come in our church, even a pedophile, if they got saved and they can still serve in our church. Maybe we won't put them in the Sunday school class, but they'll make a fine usher. And I'm just sitting there like dying. Like, I can't believe
that would be tough. I don't understand why in the world pastors are bending over backwards to accommodate the perverts and pedophiles of the world. I really do not understand why they're going out of their way.
It seems to me like they're wanting to more take a stand against like Pastor Anderson than really the sodomites.
Yeah,
I never heard anybody talking about bringing pedophiles in and making them ushers before.
No, I did not grow up with that. I grew up under the preaching of Keith Gomez and Phil Kidd, and Keith Gomez is still pretty rough privately on his private unlisted sermons, about it. But I grew up where they did not allow any room for pedophiles or perverts in the church at all. So this is definitely a new thing in the past.
Yeah, and like I said, that's what I believe. I just started hearing that preaching just in the last couple of years, and I think it's in direct response to Pastor Jimenez being on the news and that just going around, and fundamental Baptist pastors trying to make sure they are not associated with that doctrine at all, and they've really gone to the complete other side of it.
And I think they're scared to death of persecution. The baby boomer generation is scared to death of persecution, and shame on them, because they came and they were under the teaching of people like Hiles, who was persecuted for a lot of his beliefs,
Right.
as far as the media went and things like that. So shame on them. But, I think you probably are right. I think it is indirect.
Because it doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense to say something like that.
No,
so I mean, I sat through sermons like that and still stayed in the church and still smiled and was friendly to people. And you just got to get through, just for the Lord's sake.
Right.
You're not in church for your pastor. You're not in church for the people, and it's for your obedience to the Lord. So
right. And you know what? Like if it's that big of a deal, then move. People move for jobs all the time. Find a church that you would love to be involved in, you would love to help out in, you'd love to be a blessing to, and move if you're able to. If you're able to, transfer, your husband's able to transfer his job, then if it's that big of a deal, then you need to just move. If you absolutely can't find a KJV,
right.
Right on Salvation, not
Right.
even.
No, I mean, absolutely right. I can't agree with that more. Like right now we're in Atlanta, Georgia, and I want to say the population growth they're saying is like, the last few years have been 70 to 90,000 people moving here a year.
Wow.
They're not coming for, Stronghold Baptist Church. They're coming here for the economy. They're coming for their jobs.
From escaping Illinois, so we need you. Move to Illinois. People are fleeing from the state. Oh, I asked my husband the other day, why are we in Illinois? But
that's hilarious. If you guys probably were like in South Carolina or something, we probably would have moved to your church.
Yeah.
Because we're like, oh, we love Pastor McMurtry's preaching. And, and it really was, when we decided to move, we really wanted to move, probably, I wouldn't say like about 6 months in after listening to Pastor Anderson's sermons online and Pastor Jimenez. We were like, we really wanted to make the move. But I mean, it just wasn't, possible at that time. And then once we saw churches, getting started more quickly and, people like your husband coming out like, hey, we're on board too, with this the hard preaching and stuff. And we thought, wow. And so we really thought we would get one in Virginia. Like we were kind of like holding out. We're like, someone's going to start a church in Virginia. But
that is so funny because Logan Campbell just said, come to Virginia, please. So VA is Virginia, right?
we were like, it's going to happen. Like the churches were getting closer and closer. Like, first it was like California. And my husband's favorite preacher is Pastor Jimenez. And I'm like, there's just like, I couldn't imagine moving to California, with our family and just the cost of living there. It would be a bigger leap of faith.
Yeah, Virginia is very, isn't it expensive as well in Virginia?
Northern Virginia, like where Kirsten lives.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm actually from there. I'm from the DC area, like Alexandria, Virginia. And it's extremely expensive there. Like my mom rents a 1-bedroom old apartment for like $1,200 a month. It's insane.
Wow.
And I'm trying to get her to move to Atlanta now, but it's,
Kirsten's on the chat right now. She said, Freya asked today if they passed the gun law in Virginia, if that would mean she could finally go to Lana. She loves my daughter, Lana. They've been wanting to move here. So
you guys should move, Kirsten. Northern Virginia is terrible. And like the traffic there, the cost of living, and now the gun laws, you should just move.
Yeah, everyone's saying, come to Virginia, come to Virginia. I don't know how my husband would feel about that. He thinks he's a Southerner, but yeah, I think our roots are pretty much in Illinois. So I think we're here to stay Illinoisans.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely, a need for this kind of preaching because, and I would say one of the legitimate concerns of, these like new IFB Warriors or whatever you call them.
Yes, and IFB Warriors.
Is the repent of sins for salvation doctrine in the IFB churches. It's rampant. It is huge. It's confusing. And it's hard to figure out where your pastor truly stands. Mm-hmm. And that is a reason. And we actually did leave one church because they were hardcore. Yeah. Pretty much every church we've been to, from time, you're going to sing Victory in Jesus. You are.
He's saying Victory in Jesus. And we've changed it in some of the books. I was it last Sunday night? And then there was a part, repent of yours, and we're just like singing it. And I'm like, we like kind of paused, like we stumbled over the words and we're all looking at each other like, oops, because my husband changed it in one of the books to, I can't remember what he changed it to, but he changed the words and he's like, we need to go through all the hymn books and change the words to this, but we haven't yet. And so we were singing it and we were all like, kind of, oh, oops. We knew. We said,
I mean, yeah. And I do like the rest of, I like the chorus, I do like the tune of the song, but
it's all good except for that one part. It's all good.
And people believe the truth because of that. And so, you really got to talk to your pastor, if even, I've been to some churches where they'll just get some of those reprint gospel tracts that they didn't really write those. Right. That's not really what they believe, but they were just like on sale or something for like 2 cents each. So they ordered them. And on the back, of course, they have, you've got to repent of your sins to be saved, but that's not really what your pastor believes. You really need to talk to the pastor and find out if that's what they believe. And, one church we were at, unfortunately, and they were like hardcore, pulled out John MacArthur books on us. We had a private meeting with them and we're like, this is irreconcilable. So we did leave one church, but that is, I think, the big doctrine that you would actually,
and I agree.
Fit about.
I agree.
Go ahead and post your Pastor Anderson Repent of Sins Heresy on Facebook for that one, for your pastor.
Yeah.
If that's what they believe. But everything else, you just gotta, learn to get along and, just,
Repent of sins, KJV, non-KJV only. Those would be the big deal breakers for me. Definitely. Once saved, always saved. I think most Baptists believe that, but yeah, those would be the big ones. But let's move on. We have a lot more to cover. I'm going to try to go through these quickly. I know it's almost been an hour, but okay. Another way to be a blessing, volunteering time and resources. And you had a lot of really good tips on this. And I feel like my ladies do all of these. So ladies, you're doing good. Sometimes more than me. I feel like I'm pulled in so many directions that I have different ladies in my church they have a really strong area, maybe when it comes to decorating for baby showers. And then we have another one that's really good at going around and cleaning things up. Heidi, I'm talking to you. And then we have another one that's really good at, just making visitors feel welcome. And then they all have these different areas to serve in. So my main suggestion would be find something you're good at, and really, really help out in that, whereas maybe Morgan, if you're watching, you are good at, she makes the cutest, she can decorate cute little gifts and help out with baby showers and do the baby shower games and things, but she doesn't bring a lot of she'll go for art, which the kids love this, but when we have fellowship, she'll go and buy 20 hamburgers from McDonald's. She doesn't make a huge 5-course meal, but she'll go buy 20 hamburgers from McDonald's, which the kids love. But even that's helping out, that's helping out having more food. Even if she doesn't take the time to cook a big meal, she's bringing food. So I appreciate that. So what are some things you came up with?
So yeah, similar things like that. The biggest thing, most churches do, they do kind of a meal train for a new mom. Mm-hmm. And I've been a recipient of that many times.
Yeah.
It's a huge, relief for the mom. And, it's just that's a huge blessing, the bringing the food.
Yeah, it is.
And, sometimes not just the new mom, but maybe someone just had a surgery or, other people could use, the meals too. And that's something you could do at your home. For me, having all my kids at church, just I get a little distracted and I feel like I'm not as, productive at doing things at the church, but, things that I can do at home while my kids are doing something else and not, wandering around and destroying things at church. I can, prepare baby shower games at my house and have them all ready to go for the baby shower and, bake cookies that, just do things where you can bring food, things I can do at my house that can be prepared ahead of time because my hands are kind of tied with just my kids and keeping track of them at church. And I love baby shower games. I love baby showers. So I want to say the first baby shower I went to at the church, Mrs. Burzens was actually doing it. And she's like, it was a fun game. She came and she's like, oh, I'm not really good at baby shower games. And I'm like, I love baby shower games. So they're like, well, it's your job now. And I'm like, yes. So now I get to do the baby shower games. And
nice. See, so that's your area that you're helping her out. So I'm sure she appreciates it a lot.
So, there's so many, things that you could do. But you know, me having a large family, if anytime there's like a fellowship or something, I always ask. And like at our church, like at Mrs. Burson, she does a lot of times the church will just buy everything and have stuff catered sometimes. And that's like so not, you know, IFB. Like it's all about the potlucks, you know, at old IFB churches.
It's all about potlucks in our church. It's all about potlucks.
Really, I think we're starting to get more potluckish as the church is growing. But, you know, Mrs. Burson's had just got used to just ordering, catering, everything. And so like probably the first month, I'm like, can I bring cookies? Do I bring something? Do you want me to bring?
Don't say that. Now my church ladies are going to be watching. They're going to be like, what? Why aren't you catering? Why aren't you ordering the catering for all our potlucks every month? So we could just.
No. But the last event we had was the New Year's, and it was a potluck. So I think maybe as the church is growing, because I want to say our church is up to like, you know, 60, 70s on Sunday mornings now after just a year.
That's what I was reading.
Being in Atlanta. So I think you know, we're expanding a bit, and we're probably going to do more potlucks in the future.
That's a lot to cater. That's a lot of people to cater for. So
I can't even imagine how expensive it is. And I mean, you know, that's another thing, you know, that I loved about our church is everything's free, you know, because a lot of churches we've been to, it's kind of like, which this could be another point of contention, you know, like when we first heard, you know, the preaching on not buying and selling in the church, we're like, what are we going to do? You know, do we not go to the Valentine's banquet anymore? And you know, there's just so many, you know, aspects, or, you know, can we, you know, not go to the Mother's Day banquet because we've got to all pay $10 and, you know, now we're going to be sinning. So yeah, just so, but that's not a reason to leave your church either. If your church charges for banquet.
No, that's not a reason to leave. Yeah. For that too, I would think for banquets, that's more of so just to cover the cost. They're not making money off that.
Right.
So I agree, everything should be free as well. We don't charge for anything in our church, food, anything like that. But yeah, I would say that that's more just to cover the cost. I doubt they're like, cha-ching, we're making like $1,000 off this meal, you know, so I doubt they're like,
I mean, sometimes they would do stuff like that. Say they're trying to raise funds for like, you know, for the kids or something. It's like, you know, come buy a $20 plate of pasta and like a side roll.
Right. Yeah. I've seen events like that. So
I've seen that as well. And we just didn't go because we're like, no, we don't want to, you know, make God's house the house of merchandise. So.
And that's the thing too. I mean, if you have a problem with something, just don't go. You don't need to let everyone know why you're not going. You don't need to cause contention. You don't need to cause problems or drama for the pastor and his wife and make it be known, I'm not going to this. Just stay home and keep your mouth shut, you know?
Like, you know, just leave out here. This is, you know, like a den of thieves in here, out of here.
Bring a whip in and start going.
And then go home on Facebook and type up, you know, Jesus was so mad, you know, he made the, you know, scourge of cords.
Exactly.
That's just, it just never goes well. So yeah, just learn to be quiet. I mean, and God talks so much about just keeping your tongue, and, you know, life and death are in the power of the tongue.
Exactly.
So you just want to keep it.
Exactly.
The less you say, the less you sin, you know?
Yep. And even when it comes to resources, I know a lot of this rests on the husband, but even just tithing, I know people will try to throw tithing out because we're in the New Testament era or whatever, but you know, the laborer is worthy of his hire. And, you know, it also talks about the household of faith. And, you know, the church can't pay the electric bills, pay the water bill without people giving towards that. You know, the pastor can't devote as much time to the things of the Lord if he is having to work a secular job and things. So, you know, and they say, well, back then, you know, people tithed with food and, you know, all this stuff. Well, that was a lot of their currency, or a lot of their trades or barters was done with that. We don't do it that way anymore here in America. You know, the way that we buy things is with money. So that is obvious.
Even then, you know, God told them, well, if you need to go and exchange it for money, you know.
Yep. So
exchange for money. So yeah, pay your tithes. I mean, you know, that's huge. And I mean, we sometimes struggled financially, and, you know, I know my husband always made sure our tithes were paid, you know, even if we maybe were behind on something else, it was never going to be behind on our tithes, because
we're the same way. And it's always evened out. You know, sometimes it's been like, well, what's going to happen? But we always make ends meet. So definitely.
Yeah, some resources. So I'll confess, I've been like a little lazy with the meals. The last few ladies who have had babies, I've just gotten like Chipotle gift cards and like Jimmy John's.
Sounds good to me. I wouldn't mind that.
So, well, yeah, because we're in Atlanta, and so it's kind of like a big, busy area. And I really don't even go into Atlanta because there's just too many people like driving around. So for me, I'm like, you know, to fill up my van with gas and drive around crosstown, you know, I would just rather give someone a gift card if we have the resources.
Right. And I'm sure they appreciate that. I'm sorry. I hated Atlanta when it was horrible. It was horrible. I hated driving. I was nervous for my life. There was it was raining the night we left. Because remember, there was a big hurricane. It was the Marching Designing Conference. There was a big hurricane going through the area. And no one was even staying in between their lines. Everyone was just like all over the road. I felt like we were in Mario Kart where everyone's just driving all together. It was crazy. So you can.
My husband's a truck driver in Atlanta. He delivers milk to Kroger. So he's got to drive his 18-wheeler in Atlanta. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like,
no,
I couldn't.
That's really hard. But
I don't
moving on.
Atlanta, so.
Yeah. How about being gracious and patient with other church members, with new believers? You know, they're not automatically going to know everything you know. You know, I know you've been saved about, I think you said 15 or 16 years. I've been saved, I don't know, a long time, like 34
Wow.
years or over 30 years. So, you know, I'm like a 30-year-old in, you know, salvation years, but you've got other ones that are like a year old in salvation years and 2 years old in salvation years. So it's going to take them time to learn and grasp things, you know, different standards and things. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, you know, God tells us, you know, as newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word that you may grow thereby. So, you know, when you're a babe in Christ, you're going to drink the milk and, you know, you're not going to have the strong meat right away. And that's okay. And that's how it's supposed to be. You know, we're going to grow in grace and, you know, everyone's going to get their, you know, and their time, and you can't force somebody. And I think that's even worse. We have been to some churches that were pretty militant. You know, for example, if you were a Sunday school teacher, you not only had to wear a dress at church, but you could not wear pants out of church.
Yep.
And there was actually a couple that have you?
Yeah,
I thought it was going too far.
No, all the old IFB churches I grew up in, they had that rule.
I mean, in your own, like at Walmart.
Yeah, you couldn't sit in the choir. No, that's crossing the line. I believe that's crossing the line because then the pastor is now dictating to you how to run your personal life, and that's not his area. He's supposed to just preach it and leave it at that. So I disagree with having things like that.
And I think it's actually worse to do that because you're not really being persuaded in your own mind.
Exactly.
God talks about being fully persuaded in your own mind. And, you know, if you're just putting on the dress and a skirt so you can teach Sunday school, you know, when you leave that church, if you move, and we went to a lot of like heavy military churches just because we were right by the base. And, you know, I'm still friends with some of them on Facebook. And I'd say almost like all of them that moved away from the church all put their pants back on.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not there because they weren't,
their standard.
It wasn't their conviction. It wasn't, you know, they weren't persuaded in their own mind. It was, they wanted this position at church and this is what they had to do. And, you know, I think that's the wrong way, you know, to go about things. Or, you know, and even when some women first start wearing skirts, you know, they need a little help with like the length. You know, so they're thinking, oh, I've got a skirt on now, but you're like, oh, your pants were actually more modest.
Right, exactly.
But, you know, you just go to them in love, you know, and mostly I would say your pastor, probably like once a year, if you're in a good church, your pastor's probably going to preach a clothing sermon.
Right.
You know, or you could just share with them, but, you know, not just like rude about it, but, you know, share some. And, you know, and I said, it's important to memorize, you know, Bible verses just because you want to know what you believe to explain to others. You know, somebody asked me, you know, well, how come you quit college and, you know, just stay home and have babies all day? You know, I would give the verse, you know, I will therefore that the younger women get married, bear children, die in the house. You know, that's what God wants me to do. You know, you want to have those verses in your heart, you know, to always be prepared to give an answer to every man that asketh you the hope that's in you. So with meekness, you know, of course.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that. And you're going to need verses like that in your own mind for when there's times of doubt and there's times of, is this worth it when you've had a horrible day, when your dryer is broken and you find out, oh, I had one of those days. Your dryer is broken. You found out you messed up on buying your husband's plane ticket for the wrong day. And all this stuff is happening and you're like, oh my goodness, it would be easier just to go work a job the whole day. It would be easier to do that.
I won't lie, I'm not perfect. And like I said, going over this list, this is not like, this is everything I do all the time. It's not. I had moments where I doubted, especially if we had a financial struggle, I many times thought maybe I should have finished my degree and did my career and, because what good are all these kids if we're not going to be able to feed them, but, God always provides. We've never gone without a meal. We've never gone without a roof over our head. And, it comes down to trusting the Lord and just, and it's very hard sometimes to, feel like, is this really the right decision? Because, I'm doing what God's asked me to do, but it seems like the people that aren't doing what God's asked them to do are prospering. And, bottom line, God reigns on the just and the unjust. We can't look at other people and see, and we don't see everything. We might see a career mom who's, her kids are all cute and they take great family pictures and everyone looks happy. But we don't see everything in their home life. We can't compare ourselves to, other people. We compare ourselves to the Word of God.
Okay, exactly. And KJV, I'm going to address this. They said God may want women to raise children, but there's nothing against going to college. Intellect is a gift. And I'm going to tell you, my own personal belief is that college is overrated. And if you even do research about different things nowadays, blue collar jobs are getting more. They're raising more. Hi, I hear someone.
Lock my door.
Speaking of children, I thought your door was locked. That's funny. But college is definitely overrated. And I will say that college is necessary for some trades, such as the medical field, if you want to be a doctor, if that's what you want to do. I can't think of much more. I have known of people that have college degrees and they're strapped with debt and they go on to make 40, 50 grand a year. And then they have all this debt, this massive debt of this college degree. So I will say it's overrated. And just because you don't go to college does not mean you are not intellectual. I am constantly learning. I am constantly bettering myself. I am constantly becoming more proficient at the areas I'm strong in, such as music and different things like that. You can always learn with or without a college degree. Even just homeschooling my children, I'm learning more. Most people, they get through high school, they get the college degree, and then they just stop. They don't advance or learn more. As a homeschooling mom, I am constantly relearning stuff that I might have forgotten because I did high school, so many years ago or whatever. So just because you don't go to college does not mean you're not intellectual. And you can always learn, you can always better yourself without college. So those are my 2 cents.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I finished half of my degree. I was studying biology. I, had Dean's List grades. I was, on the path to, greatness there at Virginia Tech. And so, but I will say, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. And, this whole like college idea, I just think it's of Satan, to get young people right at 18 to 22 years old, away from their parents, away from accountability, and put them in these dorms, and I mean, I lived in the dorms at Virginia Tech, and it's a godless place. I mean, and let me tell you this, you could think your kids are doing good because like I had Dean's List grades. You could still go out and drink and use drugs and still get Dean's List grades. You could do so many things and your parents will never know. All they check is your grades. They're not checking on what time you're home. They don't know so many, drunkenness. I mean, so much drunkenness. Like, I don't even really know anyone that didn't get drunk at Virginia Tech besides like my roommate who was a Mormon. I mean, I'm serious. Like even like the good kids that I went to high school with, that their parents, were supervising them when they were in college, everybody drank, like everyone. Like I couldn't even tell you anyone's name that didn't drink, really, because it was just, everyone did it. And I mean,
it comes down, I believe it comes down to priorities, because, you know, can you get a job as a man, especially, can you get a job or a trade that is going to be a money maker without college and subjecting yourself to the drink and the drug culture? Because there's no surprise that college does have a drinking and a drug culture and a sex culture. So there's no denying that. That's not a surprise to anyone. Everyone knows that. So, you know, what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to, you think you're strong enough to withstand all that as a Christian, to go to a place that is godless, like you said, and has the party culture? You think you're strong enough? Well, the Bible says, take heed lest you fall, you know, because we're all susceptible to sinning, and we're all weak at, you know, different times of our life. So,
I mean, yeah, we have 5 boys, and we are, and a lot of times with a large family, people will say, well, what about the college fund? You know, how are you going to pay for college for all of them? And I'm like, we're not going to. And I will say this, my husband did finish his degree at Virginia Tech, and he's a CDL truck driver. You don't even need a high school diploma for my husband's job. And we paid $30,000 for his degree, you know, praise the Lord, it's all paid off, but
wow.
You know.
Right. No, like Kirsten said, doctor, nurse, lawyer, dentist, veterinarian, all need a degree. She wanted to be a music history professor. She's so glad I dropped out of my PhD program. I still love learning. I know you do. And I'm the same exact way. So, and then Ashley said, I went to college and never drank or party, but I'm not for college unless a career requires it. So once again, you just have to weigh your priorities. You know, maybe you will be able to withstand it. But I know for a lot of the blue collar jobs, you can just go, you can get an apprenticeship. They're constantly looking for electricians, plumbers, you know, like you said, truck drivers. I know that's a big, and you know, you make enough with those jobs to be able to comfortably provide for your family. So if someone has an intellectual gift, it's wrong to suppress it. What do you mean by intellectual? Because I believe that you can always better yourself as far as, you know, learning more. So do you mean, are you going off of like IQ or what? You know, so, but we're not in here to argue college. So let's move on. I'm going to go ahead and skip on over on F. We're running out of time. It's already 8:15. So let's just, I wanted to go through, you know, just a few of the last points that I put on there. Helping out in different areas of the church. So, you know, I wanted to specifically go over the few that you put on, and then just end with just main things that you can help out your pastor's wife with. You know, as ladies, this channel is geared more towards ladies. And I know a lot of ladies ask all the time, how can I be able to listen to my pastor's wife? How can I help her out? You know, what can I do to help her? So I wanted to go over those real quick, just some things I came up with. But church cleanup is a big one. You know, we kind of talked about it earlier, just not destroying the place and then just leaving, right?
Yeah, so I would say at a bare minimum, if you're a mom with kids, you know, sometimes my kids just like travel with crumbs in their clothes, and you know, we could get up and there's, you know, stuff on the seat, just straightening the hymn books. And our church is really, really good about this. Like, I think we don't have pews, we have chairs. So, you know, at the end of the service, where our family's been sitting, you know, especially if my husband's not at church with me, like all the chairs are just all jumbled up. And so, you know, before we leave, we always straighten all the chairs, put the hymn books back. You know, if there's like bulletins on the floor or water bottles, like our church doesn't have a water fountain, so there's water bottles in the fridge. So, you know, we'll just make sure everything's cleaned up, take all your stuff out at a bare minimum, just to clean up behind yourself. Right. And then, you know, if you're able to, you know, help with the other cleaning. But like I said, our church, we really don't have this issue at all. Everyone's pretty good about cleaning up behind themselves, and you know, just doing a few wipe downs. But I mean, and if you see something in the bathroom, you know, like our church has Clorox wipes under the sink, you know, you could just grab one and wipe it up, you know, not wait for the scheduled cleaning person to come. So.
Right. And, you know, we do have different people that rotate. but we're in the process of trying to sell the building. So for us, it's important to just kind of clean up a little bit. And we have a lot of ladies that help out in this. So, and it's a huge blessing to me because I'm exhausted. I'm still nursing. You know, I've got 7 children of my own. I'm just constantly busy. We stay at the church all day on Sunday. So by the end of the day, I'm wiped out. I'm exhausted. So it really is a blessing when ladies will just step up and help out. So I really appreciate them. But even just praying for your pastor and his family and every church family, you know, start a list of all the church families that attend, especially when you're smaller. Maybe if you're bigger, you can't necessarily do this, but start a list of all the different families in your church and just pray for them every day. You know, everyone's going through something, right? Everyone has battles that they're facing, and you can really feel those prayers a lot of the time. I know I can feel when people are praying for me. So that's a huge blessing, is just praying for everyone in your church. And then
yeah, I agree. It's easy for me. Like usually our church is still relatively small. So, but I want to say all the ladies, I either have their Facebook info or their cell phone number. And one thing I think is, you know, super important is to just text people and find out what's going on. You know, if you don't see them for a service or two, you know, we had a few people missing yesterday and it just took me like 10 seconds to text, missed you at church.
Mhm.
You know, is everyone okay? You know, when they respond back, you know, one of the families, oh, we were actually in Tennessee visiting Pastor Fritz's church.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, you know, I'm glad no one's sick. But, you know, how long did that take? You know, 10 seconds.
Exactly.
You check on somebody and, you know, you never know, you know, what's going on. I actually texted one of our ladies at church today and she's like, oh, we're actually moving back to North Carolina. And I'm like, wow. I kind of knew they were, but I mean, just so people don't think I'm going to be a part of this church, you know, for months, and then I can leave and not be here for a few services and no one even notices. That's got to be hurtful, you know, to some people. I mean, some people are more sensitive than others, and you would
like, right. And people like knowing, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but people like knowing that they are missed, right. You know, and it helps when it's not just, because I notice every week. We were a little bit low yesterday because it was like 1 degree outside. So I notice when, and I'm not exaggerating, I notice when people are missing. I know who's gone. I know who's there. And it's one thing coming from me checking up, you know, hey, how you doing? And it's another thing if there's several people in the church checking up, you know, on people. Where were you? We missed you. So.
Right. And like you said, coming from, especially from the pastor's wife, a lot of people kind of like expect that. They're just like, oh, that's just exactly what they're supposed to do. Right. You know, and that's, you know, like one time we were at a church and like, I think there was a family, they were just having some issues. And I got the phone number and texted, and like, she was like, did the pastor tell you to do this? And I'm like, no, I just wanted to see, you know, what happened and if you guys are okay. And if, you know, there's anything we could do for you. So, you know, it really goes a long way when someone besides the pastor and his wife, because you know, people a lot of times in their mind think too, the pastor and his wife have ulterior motives. They want your tithes. That's why you're calling to check on them. And I'm not kidding.
Well, I could see people thinking that, but I always think that however a person judges the other people in his church, that's how they're thinking in their heart. Because usually what's in your heart and what's in your brain is going to come out in how you judge other people. So if someone's saying, oh, the pastor just wants my tithe, obviously money is on their brain a lot and they're thinking about that. So that's just
what people think. So it's nice when you have the whole church, you know, as a whole, there's several ladies, you know, and of course I'm talking like ladies, you know, reach out to other ladies. I don't like call people's husbands and see.
Right.
Missed you on Sunday.
Yeah, for real. That's a given. Yeah, ladies, don't be texting other husbands asking where they were. So let's go over real quick before we end. Being a blessing specifically to the pastor's wife. I have a lot of ladies that ask this. I don't really want to do a whole show on it. I might have in the past, I don't know, a shorter one. But my main thing is for my ladies, I just want them to realize that my main job is to take care of my husband and kids. And that's if my ladies could just understand it, and they do. They don't put any expectations on me as far as, just devoting all my time to them and activities for them and calling them and texting them. They understand because most of them are busy with their own families as well. But there is no specific title in the Bible that is a pastor's wife title. This is what is expected of a pastor's wife. There are deacons' wives. So obviously, I do have some expectations of myself that I put. But as far as like a title or a role, my job is to take care of my husband and kids. And, I think you realize that with your own pastor's wife. And
yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't get offended, if I text our pastor's wife and like she doesn't text me back. I would never even think twice about it.
Mhm.
I would think she's busy.
Right.
Like, but I know some people, I guess, I don't know, is it like the millennial or I don't even know all the terms, but the snowflakes
Yeah.
that are like super sensitive and easily offended and, something like that would be like, oh, well, the pastor's wife just thinks she's above me. She didn't respond to my text. And it's,
Right.
It's not what you're thinking. Like, it's really not.
Right. And that's the thing too, one way to be a blessing is realizing that the pastor's wife doesn't have a lot of time to counsel. The main time that you're going to get your counseling is 3 times a week when you're here for the sermons. That's that's the main time you're going to get your counseling. I've always said that if people would just be at church 3 times a week and they would really glean from the pastor's preaching and use it to help change their lives from the inside out, their lives would be so much better if they would just do that. So a lot of times people want a quick fix. They don't want to be put in the commitment or the effort to just really take baby steps, one baby step at a time, and they want a quick fix. Well, fix it for me. I need to counsel with you. Fix it for me. Sometimes there's not a quick fix.
Right.
And, sometimes she really doesn't have time. So she is focusing on her family, raising her family, and focusing on the needs of her husband. So it's not an insult to you. She's not rejecting you. She's not putting you down. She just really doesn't have time. So I know some pastors' wives who don't counsel at all, so they said, be here to hear my husband preach. That's the counseling you need. Be here to hear my husband preach. So,
and they have to be right to say that. I mean, like you said, there's no like command in the Bible that the pastor's wife has to, set up counsel sessions. I mean, we're told that, aged women teach the younger women, but it doesn't say the pastor's wife, it's every aged woman, every woman who has some knowledge and advice and experience, to share.
Well, yeah. And that leads me on to the next point, treat her like any of the other ladies. She doesn't want to be put on a pedestal. I know I don't want to be put on a pedestal because I will fall off. So, I'm not perfect. I have bad days. Your pastor's wife is not perfect. She has bad days. You have bad days. We all have bad days. So, we're just human. We're not perfection yet. We will not be like him until we see him. So, just remember that her kids have bad days too. I've been in some churches where it's just so stifling. Like, it's so stifling for the pastor's kids. And I feel so bad for them. Like, they have to be perfect. They can't ever mess up because, well, then everyone's going to doubt the pastor's preaching when it comes to raising kids, and so they use them as an example. And that's horrible. If you're a pastor's wife and you're watching, don't ever use your kids as an example of, well, do it this way because look at my kids. They're just the model of perfection, because your kids are going to mess up. And like you said, that your kids are going to be bad sometimes. And it's the same way for a pastor's wife. So, but did you want to just go over the last 2 things that I had on there? Or I can go over the last one too, because that is
being hospitable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being
hospitable. I think, hospitality is like a big thing. Like, I invite people over a lot. I've only had like 2 people from our church come over. I think I live on the south side of town. So I live on the bad side of town.
The bad side.
I'll invite people over.
House. I like your house.
I like our house too, but we're not like in the, I guess like the good school district, we're not where like all the shops are and stuff, which I don't really care because I only go to Aldi and Walmart.
Yeah, that's where I go.
I don't really care about the other shops, but but I will invite people over, and I mean, we've had, at other churches, I mean, sometimes it was like once a week we would just invite someone over and just go through and try to make sure we had invited everyone over because, with being hospitable, like, I don't know, I don't like to let people feel left out. Yeah. So we don't do birthday parties anymore because it's just too overwhelming and we have too many of them.
Yeah.
But, you know, when we did do parties, I would literally invite the whole church just because I didn't want anyone to feel like
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. We just had a birthday party and we invited the whole church. So
So yeah, we ended up, the last birthday party I threw, which was like 2015, we had like 75 people in our house and it was crazy. And I'm like, we just can't do birthday parties where we invite like every single person anymore. But yeah, just being hospitable. And then, you know, even if you don't have a home where you feel like you can invite people to, you could offer to meet at a playground, you know, and bring some snacks with you. I always, you know, try to do something extra for people. You know, if you're going to meet at the park, maybe bring some Krispy Kreme donuts if you can, or bake something. Like, I'm just like in a phase of my life where I just like to buy stuff instead of making stuff.
hey, it's fine. You got to do what you got to do. You have a lot of kids that are young. As they get older, it's going to get easier for you. They're going to help out a lot more. But yeah, you remind me a lot of Leslie. Just your spirit, your good and your happiness, and just, you know, all the kids that are so young, you know, just boom, boom, boom. It just reminds me a lot of
Yeah,
Leslie.
I think our kids are like almost like exact ages. And I even joked with her and said, oh, we have like a spouse for each because we're all like like the opposite. I think hers are, because she just had another girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's like beating me on the girls now. Like, because I have 5 boys and 3 girls. So
Yep. If you need one more girl to catch up. What is it? Yeah, I can't remember how many each one is.
She just had her 9th. She always has like a baby a year before I do. So
that's funny. That's funny. She's a cutie too. All right. Well, yep. I'm going to wrap this up. So I hope that this helped you guys just, you know, learn more about how to be a blessing in your church. I have a feeling that Kelly is a blessing to her church and her pastor's family, just her joyful spirit. So everyone's saying, yeah, you do remind them of Leslie. I was thinking of that about halfway through. I'm like, oh, she reminds me so much of Leslie. Your personality and your laugh and your hair and everything reminds me so much of Leslie. So I thought that was sweet. But thank you for being on with me. Do you have any final words about just being a blessing?
I mean, just to be steadfast in your, you know, service to the Lord, and just, yeah, like you said, smiling, I think just helps out so much because so many people don't smile these days. You know, you walk through the store and you smile, and I'm always smiling, even with all my kids, and people are just like this lady's crazy. I think that, you know, having a good spirit is going to, you know, kind of catapult all the other things, because if you have the right spirit and the right attitude, you're going to start wanting to do, you know, these acts and, you know, not feel burdened down. Because I have seen, you know, some pastors' wives or people in the church where it's like, oh, I'm always have to do this and I'm just so burnt out. And it's like, then just don't do it. Just don't do it then. You know, don't do it.
I am. I've gotten to that point in my life. I've realized that it's not worth it if you're completely stressed out and unhappy. So there might be some things that get undone, but my family's happier, I'm happier, and I'm sure the church ladies are happier. And that, I think having a good spirit is so important, because there are a lot of women, we have the potential to be drama queens, and we have the potential to bring in a very bad spirit, and it's catchy. You can feel bad vibes coming from people when they're in a bad mood and they just wear it on their sleeve. So, you know, having the right spirit is so important. It's important for the spirit of the entire church. So that can be a blessing, just having a happy disposition and a sweet spirit and a smile go so far in a church, for sure, definitely. So we're going to end it on that note. Stay on. I'm going to end it on here, but I just want to say goodbye to you. So I hope you ladies enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. So go ahead and tell them bye.
Bye.